Hey there, Wilhelmina Ryak here. Thanks for stopping by. We know that for industries like healthcare and financial services, social media isn't just a nice to have anymore. It's a real growth engine. But figuring out how to actually use it in a compliant and meaningful way, that's the tricky part. That's why I'm here with Tim Rickards, who spent years helping top financial brands with their social strategies for a practical conversation about what healthcare organizations can learn from financial services. We'll talk about empowering your local teams, building trust at scale, and staying compliant without losing authenticity. If you're wondering how to make social work for your field teams, this one's definitely worth a watch. Let's get into it. Tim, to kick us off, can you briefly describe the role of Yext Social for the field and how it's helping regulated industries show up more effectively on social media?
Sure. And first, hi Wilhelmina, good to see you again. I would say that we bucket this in three ways. The first thing is staying compliant, always key, the base level for all financial services firms, and usually a little more complicated than it might appear at first glance. The second item is leveraging the power of the field, something that many firms pursue, but I would say the minority do a really great job of. It's an untapped resource for a variety of things in terms of marketing and revenue generation. And then the third is extending organic reach. So taking the power of social, employing that to take a brand, for example, and spread it out across multiple connections and individuals to try and drive a little more authentic connections.
Love that. So you've worked with some of the largest financial brands on social enablement. What challenges were they facing that social helped them solve?
Sure. So generally, I think the major challenge, the initial challenge, is straddling that line between compliance and regulatory concerns and then the personalized marketing. So that's a complex question. Each firm has its own compliance and supervisory um, point of view. And
Mhm.
so how can you combine those two things? You have marketing on one side and you have your regulatory needs on the other. So Yext Social for the field, it really helps because these supervision processes, as we call them, they're built into the platform and
Mhm.
they can be customized and aligned to the processes that a firm needs for to be in concert with their compliance and regulatory point of view. So that's really helpful. It gives them that flexibility. Some firms may want to have all posts screened as they're created for their users, but then they might be willing to let those posts be published without a second review. Others may want to have a second review implemented. Others may want certain types of content versus others, supervised and not. And each firm may have different terms or phrases or concerns within their specific industry that they want to apply to the content. So it gives flexibility. It creates a situation where when we do it correctly, there's a wonderful balance where compliance realizes its needs are being met and marketing and the individuals, often advisors, feel that their needs are being met.
Some. So what does compliant social selling actually look like in the field for financial advisors? And how is that different from traditional brand marketing?
Sure. So I think the biggest difference of all is that brand marketing is top down. So you have your brand, it has a brand voice, it speaks to quote unquote the consumer. It's very tightly controlled, it's very tightly planned. Social selling is bottom up. You're empowering hundreds, if not thousands or tens of thousands of individuals to communicate and market as a representative of the brand. So the brand comes through the individual. And to me, that is the central difference. It is the central struggle often that many marketing departments face is how do you incorporate this bottom up concept into a tight brand framework. But what
Mhm.
it allows for is, in general, a more authentic communication of what the brand stands for, what the company stands for, the people who work there, the products they provide, the reason behind the products. And then I think most important is the energy and commitment of the individuals, be them insurance agents, financial advisors, mortgage consultants. Why are they doing their job? Because it matters to them. And that can come through when it's done correctly.
So, how do marketers in financial services balance personalization with compliance, especially at scale?
So within social, that's a huge challenge, right? If you're talking about thousands of people publishing on the social networks,
Mhm.
that's why within Yext Social for the Field, we've got processes and capabilities in there that allow the marketers to prepare um, hundreds, if they want, actually, social posts by different topics. Those posts can be siloed off by different groups, different user groups within the company. So there, it could be regional, it could be by operations group, for example. You could have your mortgage brokers in one area, your insurance agents in another. So that allows the marketer then, from a content strategy perspective, to put the right content in the right places. And the software makes it easy to create these posts and then service them up to the users who then have the ability to choose what they might want to use as a social post. So that helps really drive a lot of volume. We also have features that allow for automated campaigns, which again, it's the opportunity to scale to drive publishing. I think the biggest advantage though, with how Yext Social for the Field works is that it is possible for individuals to create their own content and publish it. And it's possible for them to do that within the software. And it is possible for that original content to be screened before it goes out. And it can be screened for language, it can be screened for the content of the video. And so you've got that layer that we call it the warm blanket of compliance over the social post. And in that way, you can scale the activity of an individual showing up on a network as a person. Like I'm Tim and I'm a financial advisor. I work for this company. This is information about my company, but this is information about why I work there. And this is information about my life. And that creates more of a personality for me. And if you're a consumer, if you're one of the 72% of consumers who use social right to research purchases and you see me, I'm going to be more than just a talking head. I actually become someone you can imagine working with. And that we find that that leads to more business opportunities.
Yeah, that personal touch.
100%. So, Wilhelmina, that's been a lot of words coming out of my mouth. So let's flip the script, and I want to ask you some questions about social media for healthcare. If
Yeah.
you're okay with that, okay.
Yeah.
Um, First, let's talk about how social can affect your overall digital presence as a healthcare firm. How do you secure the stakeholder buy-in and engagement across an organization when they're competing? You know, they have different priorities, different KPIs. How do you approach that?
Yeah, that's the million dollar question right now. So I think search fragmentation and this shift towards more AI methods of finding care has essentially changed the environment, right?
Yeah.
No longer can we digital marketers just rely on the performance of listings to ensure that they're getting found in all the places that patients are searching for them. So we also need to factor in other components of the digital environment, such as the reviews, the website, and what
Mhm.
we're here to talk about today, social as well. And all of those things, are factored into that overall digital presence and affect the KPIs that our digital marketing teams that we typically work with from like a listings perspective care about. And it's a tricky question because what I predict to happen or need to happen is that um, companies are going to need to organizations are going to need to reconsider the silos that they're working in and maybe collaborate a little bit more to ensure that in all of those four pillars of listings, social reviews, and the website, that we're all tracking towards that same goal. And I think, it's something that we're working through in real time is trying to break down those barriers within organizations so that we can, you know, set reasonable measurable goals towards becoming more discoverable and being front of mind. I think that a lot of this comes about through conversations about data because numbers speak, that's irrefutable. If you're not showing up in certain areas, or for certain types of important queries, unbranded queries, that is information that I think, a CMO is going to care about. And if that's happening at scale and there are um, factors that are, where your subset of, let's say, providers or locations are underperforming the benchmark when it comes to social score. A digital marketer, and a CMO, we're going to kind of lobby to say, okay, why don't we loop these people in to have a conversation about how we can work together in the future?
Yeah, there's that through line that runs across all those functions. It's tough to get the functions always to be on the same page or even talk to each other. So it leads to my next question, from what you've observed, what's the best model for managing field social? Is it corporate led, field led, a bit of both? What should, firms be thinking about with regard to field enablement specifically?
Yeah, so it's a really good question, and I actually see different models depending on comfort level with engaging the field, even
Yeah.
the way in which the brand or organization presents itself. So I work with some organizations where it is very top down. Social is primarily managed by corporate.
Hmm.
Same with reputation management. I almost think that like social and reputation management kind of go hand in hand because it's a bit more of an engagement personal
Hmm.
experience versus listings, and website is very content focused, and there's almost like a wall between the end user and the brand. That's social and reviews are where you reach out, right? And I want to say like around COVID time is when we started to see that, floodgate open when it came to reputation management. Before then, it was kind of a Pandora's box for a lot of healthcare institutions. And, it's always been very important. But I think after COVID and the need to kind of message out information quickly and kind of manage some of that more subjective information more nimbly, I think brands really leaned into reputation management and maybe in certain situations kind of ceded some control to say like, hey, this is not scalable for me to manage solely at the corporate level. If I'm not incorporating like advanced methods of technology like AI, maybe I want to include some of my field users to manage this at scale. And then in certain situations where the brand is okay with this, leverage that personal touch, that local mom and pop feel, like I'm just going, like this is a mom and pop dental office. And some people really like that and leverage um, that almost like that social capital to garner more patients. So it really depends on, like you said before, compliance and what your legal team will like allow an organization to do. And then also, um, if an organization thinks that having a strong local presence versus, having that influence of the brand is going to help them move the needle and attract more patients.
Yeah, it's interesting how the pandemic just exploded the concept of I have to go see somebody in person. So,
Mhm.
right, the rise of the video doctor's appointment, and I do think one of those side effects has been a bigger expectation on the part of potential patients or customers that their healthcare providers should be available online. They should appear online in some shape or form. Certainly, that shift was so dramatic, and we saw it in the social space too. It just exploded over that time.
Yeah, I think what you just said is very interesting, and it speaks to almost like the commodification of healthcare and turning healthcare into essentially a product, right?
Mm.
So I think we've kind of over the years, especially with COVID and like Instacart and I can order things online, we almost look at healthcare and the younger generations look at healthcare as something that should be very accessible, right? And accessible in the sense that it should be easy to kind of go through that booking experience. But I should be able to understand who you are as a professional, what the experience is going to be like, even before I step in that door and book that appointment, right?
Yeah,
So I think
sure.
social is, a window into that. And, when we think about how AI is pulling in information. It's not just that objective information that is, um, your name, address, phone number anymore. People want to know if it's going to be a good experience. What are people saying online? And it's was the same thing with reviews. If you're not part of the conversation, it's going to be happening without you, and it's better to kind of have a bit more control in that area and put your brand out there, put your name out there, maybe even have a local presence if that makes sense for you. But if you're not, having a seat at the table, then, the conversation is going to continue without you.
Yeah, it will. It's happening for sure. And it's odd that, certain things matter a lot that you might not think. What's the office like?
Yeah.
What are the vibes in the office? Or what is the recovery from shoulder repair surgery? Or what are wait times at this dentist? Or, what's the best hearing aid for my parents who are aging? All that's being discussed for sure. And if you're not in that conversation and someone's using AI to search, well, then maybe you won't show up, and which
Yeah.
is unfortunate.
Yeah. All right. So now shifting to healthcare, Tim, you have the background from the financial services. What similarities do you gather from financial services and healthcare and, in terms of their social media challenges?
Sure. I mean, and I've talked to some healthcare and marketing colleagues and a little
Mhm.
bit of, attempt to just bridge the gap and have discussions. I think a lot of the challenges are the same. So again, it's this shift from brand tool to method of engagement, um, to be more authentic, more personal. We just talked about getting into
Mhm.
the conversation flow of AI. And then structurally, healthcare companies have the same challenges as financial services firms. Uh, Size could be large, could be medium, but everybody has functional divisions,
Mhm.
and silos. And again, you've got marketing goals or business goals that are a through line through all of these different functions, but how do you get them to work together? And I
Mhm.
think that mentally, psychologically, the challenge is the same. What we're gonna use social media for healthcare? It's similar to what we've heard in financial services, especially maybe 5 years ago. We're going to use social for financial services, and the answer is yes, absolutely. But I think all those things are similar. You got very, very consistent challenges across the two industries. Again, the specifics are different, right? The regulatory environment is different, the products are different, the names of the people may be different, but the base challenges are the same.
Yeah. I think especially attractive to a healthcare company is, the abilities around compliance. When we think about regulations like HIPAA and how does one interpret that and, get the green light from their legal team, but also the
Hmm.
scalability aspect as well. How do we leverage technology? How do we leverage the field to make this not such a burdensome endeavor for, their corporate team who is tasked with actually delivering on these objectives.
For sure. And I think it goes back to as well this evolution of, base level is we need to be compliant. So,
Hmm.
on the healthcare side, you've got HIPAA, FTC, FDA. You need to be fair and balanced and accurate.
Hmm.
And there are penalties. There are fines being levied for incorrect information or misleading marketing. So that's base level. But then the progression is, okay, we've done that. Then we want to scale, and then it can become a business driver. And
Hmm.
so that is truly the light bulb moment. And I think that, firms have to walk that path at their own pace.
Yeah.
And you have to start at the beginning, essentially. But realizing that down the road, absolutely, it can drive visits, it can drive preference, it can drive sales, as long as you approach it, with the right frame of mind, and again, in alignment with your firm's goals and your firm's point of view on supervision and the regulatory issues.
Yeah. Yeah. I think a lot of organizations, especially ones that I work with, are, pretty comfortable with the brand aspect of social. But when it comes to
100%.
the field, I think that that's where they start to get a little bit of like, okay, whoa, we're going to have our, practice managers do what? Or like, in having that safety net of the trusting the technology, will be ensuring that it's compliant, it's in accordance with that brand. And I love that term, that like warm blanket of compliance.
Right.
It's probably makes organizations feel very secure.
Because I mean, human beings are irrational and hard to predict, as we know. So
Mhm.
again, that tension is definitely well founded.
Mhm.
But the guardrails help you keep things under control.
Mhm.
And again, you know, within the platform itself, you're able to see the items that are being flagged for review. You're able to control what things are being flagged and control that throughput. So there's an operations component. So your reviewers, you're able to see how hard they're working and try and help them out. But what that does is it opens up this field of opportunity then to enable these individuals who work for your company to really share what the company does. And to pursue the business goals that you define, which I think is another important point that sometimes is missed. You know, there can be so much concern around supervision and compliance that sometimes social media programs, they'll forget to really think about what are we trying to achieve?
Mm-hmm.
Like, what are the
Yeah.
business goals? And oftentimes the business goals might be something that's really high level, which is fine. But if you take the time to be specific and decide what you're going to measure, you can pursue them through this distributed field social. And we give you those results back. And that can be eye-opening. And it's part where you need to start. It could just be that you want to drive engagement, but it could be you want to drive traffic, or it could be you want to go to the individual users and see if they're increasing sales. All that's possible. But the supervision structure just gives you the permission to do that. And it could be eye-opening.
Yeah.
We see it, on a regular basis, and very effective. It's hard. You need to obviously pay a lot of attention. You need to build these relationships. I think really like field social, it requires a lot of relationship building from the day-to-day owners. You need to go outside of your specific team or above. And you need to go up and get buy-in for the general concept. But if you do that, it's incredibly powerful. And
Yeah.
just it is like as you had mentioned. I mean, it's a part of marketing. It's not optional anymore. Um, the more advanced we get, the more things we have to do, and this is one of those.
Again, breaking down those barriers, breaking down those silos. The other thing that really kind of shined through while you were talking was the power of the customization within that technology, where you can kind of control what those guardrails are and
Yeah.
how much access and make that customizable within the whole experience for a field user, customizable within the Yext platform. And I think that that's super important because, especially for healthcare, just speaking personally, every single organization has their own processes and things that they're comfortable with, and having a tool that is customizable and you can be very granular about what's okay with our legal team, what are we okay with as a brand, and then making a safe place for um, the field team to kind of have the freedom to post in their on their own. Is it's a powerful thing to create that environment, to create that ecosystem.
It's done well. It's a direct support of the brand marketing.
Mm-hmm.
So it drives that message home in, I think, subjectively, of course, but a more powerful way because it's coming from an individual. I think often there's an underappreciated benefit of having so much visibility and organization around the supervision activities and treating those as something to be actively managed. We have compliance specialists and experts on our team, and the reviewers of content are generally overburdened, overworked, and so being able to work with them to dial in what needs to be supervised and how to get that done in the most efficient way can be very, very powerful. And in a way, it buys you permission to be more sophisticated with how you use social to market.
Yeah. Okay. Well, Tim, I just want to thank you so much for your time. I feel like I could ask you a million questions. I feel like we could have this conversation for forever and ever. But yeah, thank you so much for your time. This was incredibly helpful, especially, thinking about how healthcare can, dive deeper into social and incorporate that more into their digital marketing strategy. It's very helpful to hear from an industry that is doing it well, is leveraging these amazing products, and to see how that can help drive us towards our overall digital marketing goals.
It is a pleasure speaking with you, Wilhelmina. You're super smart, and I agree with what you said. And we're excited to speak to healthcare firms about how to use this. Like, we're ready to go. So hopefully that'll be happening soon.